Hello and welcome to the big picture. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has embarked on an 8-day visit to 5 Central Asian countries, apart from Russia, where he will attend the 7th BRICS Summit and Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Ufa. While the BRICS and SCO meeting have its own significance, the visit to the 5 Central Asian countries is seen as a crucial one. It is the first time an Indian Prime Minister will be visiting all 5 nations, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan in one visit. It is well known that ever since these nations broke out of Soviet Union following its collapse, they have been looking at India for both economic and strategic cooperation. However, due to various reasons, the hopes have remained unfulfilled. The UPA too in 2012 formulated the Connect Central Asia policy, though it has not made as significant strides as it was expected. The landlocked Central Asian nations, however, have assumed increased importance in the context of India's role in Afghanistan as well as Iran. These countries also expect India to play a balancing role in the region to counter the Russian and Chinese influence. We will discuss today what we can expect from Prime Minister's visit and what is it that India is looking for in the region. To discuss this, I have with me M.K.Bhadra, former ambassador to Uzbekistan, P.Stobdan, Senior Fellow, Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis, Prof. Gulshan Sachdeva of School of International Studies, JNU, Pramit Chaudhary, Foreign Affairs Editor, Hindustan Times, and from Ufa in Russia is my colleague Akhilesh Suman, who is there to cover the visit of Prime Minister Modi. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Bhadra, you know, this region, since 1992, India has been looking at it, they have been looking at us. Why is it that the relationships have not taken the kind of, momentum it must have had?
We started with a lot of goodwill because, we inherited the romance of the Indo-Soviet friendship.
Right.
Unlike other countries, Central Asia was a closed region to the outside world. In fact, the Soviets had allowed only 4 consulates in Central Asia. One was ours in Tashkent. So we had a very privileged start. But unfortunately, as you said, Girish, the hard reality is, we couldn't encash that. We are very thin on the ground. The hopes and expectations the Central Asians had in the initial period, that in their crucial nation-building process, India would be a very important partner, that we could not live up to that expectation. And mind you, Central Asia has also changed. Now, a certain amount of consolidation has taken place, and most of the doomsday predictions have gone awry. They have mastered statecraft. They practice diplomacy very effectively, and they have engaged with the world community. They have their own identity now. So the fact of the matter is that it's rather late in the day. In such matters, time lost is time lost forever. So the important thing is that we should have a fresh look with hindsight, knowing where we went wrong, where we couldn't be optimal in our diplomacy, and what the new direction should be. To my mind, the most important thing is there is a notion in India that the Central Asians are threatened by an avalanche of Islamic extremism and terrorism. But these are very naive notions. The most important thing is to build economic content. And there, regrettably, Indian business and industry has not taken the kind of interest that
which they should have.
They should have. But then there is a perennial problem of the access route. So let me sum it up like this. We can further discuss this, that the underpinnings are still not there in the relationship. And that is because we don't have a big picture.
You don't have the big picture. Yes. Let me go to Akhilesh. You are in Ufa, Russia, but are you getting a sense of what this visit is going to be as far as the Central Asian nations are concerned?
Girish, today morning I got a chance to talk to the ambassador to Russia, Indian ambassador to Russia, Mr. P.S. Raghavan, and he was very clear in his mind that see, there are conflicting relations between India and China, even though we have to look to the future. Our bilateral relationship doesn't have to impinge upon the whole multilateral relationship that is going out to be in the beginning of BRICS bank that has been created. He was saying that this is a silver lining in the whole relationship
Akhilesh,
between India and China, and if India and China
Akhilesh,
decide that they have to look the future, I think that BRICS has to be yeah.
Akhilesh, no, we will come to BRICS and the SEO meeting a little later. I wanted to understand if you are getting a sense of the importance of the visit of Prime Minister to the 5 Central Asian nations.
Exactly. Since from UFA you can sense that all the 5 Central Asian nations were erstwhile Soviet Union countries, and in a way that you can have a feel from here that yes, all those countries have been very eager from the very beginning after dismantling of the Soviet Union to go along with India. And one of the delegates who was here in UFA, he told that in the beginning in the market of Central Asian countries there were Indian goods, and now Indian goods are not in that extent. So I think that Central Asian countries are feeling that if India comes, we will have a competitive market goods, and then it will be a good future for both the Central Asian countries and even India, because Central Asian countries have to sell their oil and gas resources, and if India wants to take it from there, I think the beneficial will be Central Asian countries. So in a way that they are very eager that it is not only that since Russia is also a producer of oil and gas, China is the eager customer of oil and gas. But if India also wants to take the oil and gas, I think the importance of Central Asian countries will go up in the whole region. And once they were neglected a lot after dismantling of the Soviet Union, they are getting importance from both the sides. Girish.
Okay, Akhilesh, you stay on. I'll come back to you, Professor Sachdeva. Is this all about economics? This visit? How important is the strategic aspect of it? And in this 5-nation tour, does India have a clear approach now, clear idea of what it wants from there?
Well, I think it's both economics as well as strategic big picture. If we don't have that, then we have a problem. No, I think it's very clear that economically our links are very, very limited. And the main point, as pointed out by Ambassador Bhadra, is connectivity. Now, how do you really resolve this issue? The easiest way to reach Central Asia is via Pakistan, Afghanistan. But we know relations between India and Pakistan has always been difficult. Instability in Afghanistan. So obviously there have been difficulties in the past. So the next route is basically you go via Iran. So we have been working on that front for quite some time. But somehow we have to really, push things in that particular front. Now, Chabahar, one now reads that we have committed investment. Now, there is also a railway route which has opened between Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan and Iran. We have also built Jairanj-Dilaram road. So all these connections have to be, and the international north-south corridor. So all these, bits and pieces have to be put into the larger strategy, and we have to reach this region. We have all the old civilizational, historical, cultural links with this region. And then during Soviet period, obviously, we had a very good relationship. But in the last 20 years, politically, we have been very close. They have been wishing that India should really play much larger role in this region, because within their multi-vector policies, they want to balance Russia and China, because they have to be dependent on those countries because of history, because of geography. So now in this dynamically changing situation, when American role is somehow on decline because of their forces are out from Afghanistan, so they are looking, in fact, other players, and obviously India is a very important player. And I think in that context, if Mr. Modi is able to connect with Central Asia during his visit and able to project India's rising political, military, and other capabilities, that we are there now. And obviously, we have a strategic partnership with 3 countries, with Uzbekistan, with Tajikistan, and with Kazakhstan. So, we have not been able, the areas where India could really get, energy. Now, how do you bring energy from this area?
Okay, so we'll come to that aspect. Mr. Stobdan, both of them have been talking about why the relationships have not taken off all these. Why do you think? That it has not taken off, but why do you think it has not taken off? What has been the reasons why India has not been able to develop the kind of, proximity which was expected?
Well, I think if the intentions are there and expectations, as you rightly said in the beginning, but the reality is something different.
Why? Why?
The reality is that notionally India is very important for Central Asia. But in reality, India does not really matter for Central Asia. They have to depend on Russia. They'll have to depend on China.
Is it the geography?
Yes, not just geography, the power, strength of power, that really matters. Our reach is right up to Amritsar. Beyond that, we can't operate. Okay, we go to Afghanistan for different reasons, but it's not the natural expansion of Indian interests.
Is it just the connectivity problem?
Again, I mean, this is the problem. If the whole idea, strategy, the big picture is to contain China and Russia, it's not going to work. You are not a competitor for Russia in Central Asia.
Or China?
Or China. But even on the connectivity, if your interest is energy, if your interest is trade, if your interest is political presence, connectivity is very important. But I think the connectivity policy that we pursued for the last 30 years, last 25 years, you say, 91, 92, it's been a folly. It's been a total, complete wrong policy. You don't go to Indian Ocean to get yourself connected with Central Asia. Central Asia is close to Jammu and Kashmir. But you don't want to face the reality of talking to the Chinese. That's the hard reality. You want to shy away, talking to the Chinese to get to Central Asia. It's not just about, I think, accessing Central Asia. It's about integration with Central Asia. You won't be doing integration of Gujarat with Kazakhstan. The integration of Central Asia with India has to be Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir. That we try to ignore. You just don't want to talk about these things because the China is involved here. And therefore, I think the entire strategy is wrong. I don't think in the last 20 years, not a single drop of oil has come despite all this TAPI and IPI and all sorts of things that we have talked about. I think I spent 20 years, 30 years studying this region and all about this connectivity. I haven't seen any single project. During Narasimha Rao's period, we spent $300 million having a railway connectivity, tripartite, Turkmenistan, Iran, India. We spent a lot of money on the Chabahar not Chabahar, Bandarabas to Nika in Turkmenistan. I don't think even a single container, Indian container, goes through this railway line. That tripartite.
But the railway line was built.
Yes, finally nobody even went there to inaugurate. We could not find a leader.
Mr. Bhadra Kumar, would you agree with him?
When I said
these are devastating things, what he's talking about.
I couldn't have matched Professor Stobdan because, I'm not, used to talking like this. But he has actually put on the table the stunning reality. This is what I meant euphemistically. I used a metaphor, big picture. This is what I said that is lacking. The entire strategy is wrong. If you see the Indian discourses, we are talking in terms of countering Chinese influence. What are the facts on the ground? Their investment is over $30 billion in Central Asia. During President Xi's visit, ours, less than 1 billion.
Yeah.
And, when President Xi visited the Central Asian region in September 2013, they signed contracts for at least, one could tabulate, and I tabulated, at least $51 billion. So, we're just talking through our hat when we say, we are going to counter, we are an option for the Central Asians.
Or being a balancing part.
Professor Stobdan is completely right that India is now peripheral as a player in that region. So the challenge is immense. The big advantage I find is that in that part of the world, the personal equations with the leaderships count. And Mr. Modi is an effective communicator. Now, this is the only ray of hope we have in this.
Okay, Pramit, you know, we now know the problem. What do you think is, you think that the Indian government is aware of all these things? You think that they have a plan now how to go about doing what needs to be done?
Well, I think the big hope or the big shift that is potentially visible right now is the Iran corridor, because we now have a position. The Iranians initially were somewhat skeptical about the North-South corridor. My understanding is that at least with Chabahar, they are now agreeable to this idea. We at least seem to be prepared to actually put money on the table. The situation in Afghanistan is one reason Iran is now a little more amenable to this idea. In Uzbekistan, we have, in the case of Islam Karimov, we actually have a leader who is widely enthusiastic about working with us and has been trying very hard. He's told everybody from the Americans to our ambassadors repeatedly that these are the long list of things I want to do with your country. All you have to do is get this corridor with Iran through. If that transformation on that corridor, which has been mentioned, has been sitting around and nothing has really been happening for 20, 30 years, starts to come through, we now then get that corridor to at least Uzbekistan and theoretically Turkmenistan. The China factor is going to be interesting because China seems to be very determined to finish the Tapi pipeline. They are, at least the TAP section, the Turkestan to Pakistan section, they believe that they are on the verge of completing a large portion of that. And last time I was in China, they believe that this pipeline, and once it comes all the way through Pakistan, building an extension into India is therefore actually quite easy. In which case you actually start to get a bit of connectivity that we presently lack, as has been mentioned, on the oil and gas front. The other side of this will be the question of the security side. Now, we struggle to have a small, I would say a base, which is a sort of a hospital with an airstrip attached to it in Tajikistan. We found it almost impossible to sustain because of the logistics of having to do it via Iran around through Uzbekistan. Because again, as is mentioned, the Pakistan-China sort of combination blocks us off from direct access to Tajikistan. So we've struggled to do that. Also, we had a fair amount of Russian unhappiness with the presence of that base. But we now do naval exercises with Kyrgyzstan, and we are trying to build a slightly stronger military relationship with some of the others. So again, as has been mentioned, Russia, crudely speaking, is by far the dominant security player in that area. China is by far the strongest economic player in that area among the external powers. And in each case, we are trying to develop the capacity to add a little 5 or 6% to either of those pictures. And I think that's going to be, if we get even that 5 or 6% and we get it institutionalized, that will be the first step towards that accomplishment. Having said this, keep in mind what the document in 2012 was interesting about, and which I think, if you look at what Modi seems to be taking with him, is really implementing a lot of that 2012 document, is that, okay, we can't match the Chinese in mineral resource purchases. We have physical problems. As was mentioned, a container, I was in Kazakhstan and I asked merchants there, how do you send a container from Kazakhstan to India? And they said, and it was an amazing distance, they sent it from Kazakhstan to Xinjiang in China, and then to Shanghai, down to Singapore, and then from there to Mumbai. Okay, so it's an immense distance. It's almost like circumnavigating Asia. And that's the cheapest, fastest route for them to send a container to India. That's how bad the connectivity is. So if we can start to transform at least a little bit of this through Iran and so on, then we start to get a bit of that trade.
Okay.
And we're looking at some of the things that we're looking at 2012, telemedicine, e-connectivity on things like education, areas where we are strong and which geography doesn't matter so much.
Okay. Yeah, yes, you want to...
Yeah, you know, the one project we've been talking most about is TAPI, as you know, we have heard. Now, you know, we must realize this is a non-starter. Not because of the relationship, not because of the situation in Afghanistan, but so much as, you know, we don't know how to handle Pakistan. We don't know what to do with Pakistan. And now, when you are on these terms with Pakistan, this pipeline has no future. Nobody has to shoot it down. Nobody has to shoot it down. It is not going to take off. Second point I want to
You're
mention.
saying it's a non-starter.
Second point I want to mention is about the connectivity. Now, Iran's uniqueness as a regional power is that Iran moves on a certain front on the basis of a strategic understanding. This government has not constructively engaged Iran at the leadership's level even after 1 year. It's a diplomatic scandal. So when we talk about connectivity through Iran and pin hopes on it, Iranian President Rouhani was in the United Nations in the same town when Mr. Modi had no time for him. He instead met Netanyahu. Now, what is the signal we are conveying to these people? That's why I said, that we really don't know, because a relationship with Iran is integral to the Central Asian policy.
Central Asian policy. Okay, Akhilesh. Akhilesh, when the Prime Minister comes to UFA and has this meeting with BRICS, I'm sure he's also going to have some bilateral meetings with his leaders, especially the Chinese president. You think that these issues of interest for India in Central Asia will be part of the talks with the Chinese president?
Actually, what I can feel, Girish, that two questions are to be talked with the Chinese leadership. In essence, one is that of connectivity, another is that of narcotics and terrorism. Three questions are there that Prime Minister will love to talk with the Chinese leadership. And other than that, what I am getting a feel from the Indian side that China is a reality. They are telling China is a reality. It sends materials, it sends its products to everywhere in the world. But what we have done wrong in the last era of Soviet Union, that we had been engaged with one part and disengaged with another part. So now government policy is that engage with every part of the world, engage with every groupings of the world, and that is how you can connect yourself with the rest of the world. Okay. So it is not the question of China, whether China will obviously be advantageous position as far as product and material is concerned. But India's engagement is politically important, and whatever India can give to them and what they can give to India, that is most important.
Okay.
And that is what is there in the mind of Prime Minister and I think the foreign policy establishment.
Okay.
So they are true to the reality, what is going on with the Central Asian countries and even with the Russians and Chinese.
Okay. Professor Sachdeva, the Russian aspect of this, as far as Central Asian, India's plans in Central Asia is concerned, you think Russia will back India to the extent that it needs to back to have for India's presence in these regions, or you think that there is a conflict of interest there?
Well, that's why, in fact, the last 10, 15, 20 years, India was quite comfortable, in fact, in dealing with these states, because what we thought that Russia will have a very dominant role in this region. But unfortunately, in the last 10, 12 years now, what one can see that China has really created a huge profile. And because of its own weaknesses, somehow Russian role is relatively declining. It is still a very important player. It's relatively declining. But, I agree with Ambassador P.Stobdan. We don't have to compete with Russia or with China. But what we really need to do is project India in Central Asia, what India can really offer. And
what is it that we can offer?
No, what we can offer is the huge Indian market which is expanding. And they are really looking for new outlets. In fact, I have just done a couple of studies where if you can just see India's trade with Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Central Asia, the whole CIS and Europe, last year itself it was only about $180 billion. So if you are talking about just say, for example, India's trade with Central Asia, less than 2 billion, but we are talking 180 billion of Indian trade already happening. And it's to just extrapolate for the next few years, we are talking about at least 400 billion of Indian trade. And even if 10% of this trade actually start passing through this region via Pakistan, Afghanistan, Central Asia, or via some other region, I think the picture is much bigger. All the larger infrastructure projects, whether from ADB or UNESCAP, all become operational. So we just have to really project what India can really offer to them. And within that larger picture, you do have to work with Chinese, as Ambassador P.Stobdan has mentioned. But you also have to figure out India-Pakistan relations. Because whatever we might say, whether Iranian route or Chinese route, the shortest route is via Pakistan and Afghanistan. And that's a factor even within Indian-Pakistan relations, we have to figure it out.
I think it's a lost opportunity for 20 years, we never had any convergence of interest with Russia in
With
Central
Russia
Asia.
on Central Asia.
With Russia. I haven't seen any coordination except maybe Afghan-related, some security intelligence-oriented coordination may be there. I'm not suggesting that. But during the days of Taliban, probably Northern Alliance days, we probably had more consultation on Central Asia. But other than that, I haven't seen any coordination on the economic, political. Of course, Russia has been supporting India's candidature in the SCO and other things at the political level, but that is not there. The Chinese have taken all the opportunities and built relationship with Russia to benefit in Central Asia. That we haven't done that.
Okay.
So, but independently, of course, I think relationship with Kazakhstan, which is 70 to 80% of our relationship is only with Kazakhstan. And I expect during a Prime Minister visit, we're going to sign more than $2 billion worth business deals. So that's worth talking. Rest of the relationship with other countries more symbolic, cosmetic. Maybe some yoga, Indology or something like that. You know, Bollywood.
Okay. Mr. Bhadra.
Yes, this is the reality, you know, that the relationship with
No, it is said that Russia would like India to play a more role in Central Asia because they are worried about Chinese.
No, they are not worried about
influence.
No. These are actually wrong notions in India. They are not worried about it. They have a strategic understanding with China and they are together in it. They want to keep out the Americans from the region. They don't want the NATO to come there with the missile defense system. And they both have a congruence of interest on that. Do you know that?
So we need to work both with China and Russia if we need to have any space.
Do you know now that the Eurasian Economic Union project led by Russia has been harmonized with the China's Silk Road strategy for the entire Eurasian region, and Central Asia is the hub. So, in other words, the Russians and the Chinese are working together. In this region today. So the talk about the discord is all absolute baloney.
Okay. But Pramit, very quick last words to you. So now India needs to work with China and Russia, to have to play any significant role in Central Asia. You think that this is something which the Indian government is aware and is working towards?
See, the point about Chinese, on the Chinese side, you're looking at an infrastructure story. The Chinese are going to build that infrastructure irrespective of what India does or does not do. The question is, does some of that infrastructure start to come and benefit you, and do you decide to sign up with some of the elements of that? So, for example, the TAPI pipeline, the Chinese are going to build the TAP part of it. Whether India wants to join in is completely irrelevant to them, but they are very clear.
We have to wrap up.
On the security side, again, the Russians may not necessarily be supportive or against us, but their basic game is you do it on your own, and if you can, and if the Central Asian guys are happy with you, we're prepared to help you.
Okay. I think on that note, we need to completely run out of time, but it's going to be an interesting visit. At the end of it, what will emerge will be something very interesting to watch. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.